Great news! The Dacia Duster is finally here in Australia. Okay, that's enough jokes for now. But yes, the Duster is finally here, this tough Romanian looking SUV. Except it's not a Dacia, it's actually here as a Renault. If you like the all-terrain capability of the Subaru Crosstrek but find the looks to be a little bland, or if you think the Suzuki Jimny is just a little hardcore, you better stick around. This is an exciting addition here to the Renault Australian lineup, especially for us enthusiasts. So let's see if the Duster has been worth the wait. In Australia, there are two trim levels of the Renault Duster, the Evolution and the Techno. There are also two powertrains available, one with front-wheel drive and an automatic transmission, and another with all-wheel drive and a manual transmission. Pricing for the Duster lineup starts around $32,000 before on roads and extends to about $38,000 before on roads. Now that is pretty affordable. As standard, the Duster Evolution comes with 17-inch alloy wheels, a 7-inch digital instrument cluster, a 10.1-inch touchscreen multimedia system with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, dual-zone climate control, as well as black and grey cloth upholstery. Stepping up to the Techno, you get larger 18-inch alloy wheels, front fog lights, privacy glass, modular roof rails, keyless entry and walkaway locking, push-button start, a smartphone holder, as well as black and grey synthetic leather upholstery. While the entire Duster lineup has LED low-beam headlights, the high beams are only halogen. This is a major cost-cutting move, which is disappointing to see. Overall, however, the Duster is well equipped for the price point, especially when you consider the all-terrain capability of the all-wheel drive versions. For the full specification details, read my detailed written review at carsguide.com.au. For the design, this is one blocky looking SUV with a ton of presence. I particularly like the grille, which has Renault written out. It's a departure from the Dacia version of this car, which has the Dacia badge there instead. Another cool highlight are these Y-shaped LED daytime running lights. It's a unique look and it helps make the car stand out on the road. Depending on which version of the Duster you opt for, the lower section of the front grille can look a little different. All-wheel drive versions in particular sit a little higher to help improve the approach angle and the ground clearance. Around the side, it's clear this tiny SUV is trying to look tough. There's plenty of black cladding around the wheel arches and on the door sills. There's even a section that spills down underneath the side mirror. This is actually made up of recycled materials and there's a fleck throughout it. Other looks are these really big rear haunches at the back that also have hidden door handles for the rear. I can't help but think back to the Holden Barina when I see it though. At the back, there are plenty of angles to make the Duster stand out. The most noticeable are these triangular taillight clusters, which look funky and cool. There's also Duster written out along the tailgate as well as a simple Renault badge. I really like how it's clean and neat here on the tailgate because some car makers can go completely over the top with badging. Inside, the Duster has long been known as a budget offering in other markets, but you'd be pretty hard-pressed to tell in this one at first glances. There are cool Y-shaped air vents here up front that continue the motif from the headlights, as well as a prominent 10.1-inch touchscreen multimedia system. After spending some time in the car, however, I have started to notice there are a fair few harder plastics around the cabin, especially here on the dashboard. It's not as bad as a Suzuki Jimny per se, but it's not incredibly luxe. However, it doesn't really need to be at the price point it's at. In terms of practicality here up front, both the seats are manually adjustable. Here in the top spec, it has synthetic leather that honestly does feel a little bit like a wetsuit. Ahead of the driver, there's a leather-wrapped steering wheel which feels quite luxurious for a car at this price point. One thing I like in particular is the amount of tilt and reach adjustment this car has. Behind the steering wheel is a small digital instrument cluster that has a few informative pages you can cycle through. Moving across, the touchscreen multimedia system does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is great to see here in 2025. Another thing that I really like about this cabin is the amount of physical buttons, especially here for the climate control. That's becoming fewer and far between here in this segment. Lastly, for storage, there's a wireless charger, a couple of cup holders, a decent center console box, as well as a glove box. Moving to the second row, there is a decent but not standout amount of space. I'm behind my own driving position here, and there's minimal legroom, although there's heaps of headroom. The seat itself is pretty comfortable and laid back. I could find myself sitting here for a fair while. In terms of amenities, there are some air vents, which is really good, 2 USB-C ports, as well as this special U-clip connector. This allows you to put accessories such as an extra cup holder, a light, or hook here in the back. That's because there is no fold-down armrest. There is no cup holders as standard in this car, which is a little disappointing for this segment. The entire range gets a manual tailgate as standard. At the back, the boot space is fairly decent, though the two-wheel drive, which is what we have here, is slightly larger. This one in particular, which is the Techno two-wheel drive top spec, gets a special 2-tier boot floor. In terms of amenities, there is a light, a few hooks, and a 12-volt sockets, as well as additional U-clip accessory points, including one here on the tailgate, which allows you to fit an extra light. For the spare wheel, it's full size across the range, which is fantastic if you do lots of trips out in the outback. As noted earlier, there are 2 powertrain options offered in Australia. The more affordable option is a 1.3 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine which produces 113 kilowatts of power and 270 newton meters of torque. This is mated to a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission with drive sent to the front wheels only. It's worth noting this is the same powertrain as the Renault Arcana and Captur. There's also a 1.2 litre turbocharged 3-cylinder petrol engine with 48-volt mild hybrid assistance. Total system outputs are 96 kilowatts of power and 230 newton meters of torque. While it's less powerful, it is mated to a 6-speed manual transmission with drive sent through an all-wheel drive system. In other markets, the Duster is offered with a proper hybrid powertrain, but it's not being offered in Australia. All local versions of the Renault Duster have a braked towing capacity of 1,500 kilograms, though it's worth noting the towable download limit is only 75 kilograms. This could prove to be a hassle if you've got a towable mounted bike rack and you put a hefty e-bike on it, as this could go over the threshold. In terms of efficiency, both powertrains offered in Australia are Euro 6 compliant. The 4-cylinder front-wheel drive Duster is claimed to consume 6.5 litres per 100 kilometres on the combined cycle, whereas the 3-cylinder all-wheel drive Duster is claimed to consume 5.7 litres on the combined cycle. The former has a 50-litre fuel tank and requires a minimum of 91 RON regular unleaded petrol. The latter, on the other hand, has a slightly larger 55-litre fuel tank, but it also requires higher quality 95 RON premium unleaded petrol as a minimum. First up, let's talk about the front-wheel drive version, which is what I have here. Under the bonnet, there's a 1.3 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which sends power through a 7-speed dual clutch exclusively to the front wheels. The engine does feel quite familiar, and that's because it is in a number of different cars, including the Captur, Arcana, as well as a number of Mercedes models. There's plenty of power underfoot, leaving you never wanting more, although there is somewhat a little bit of a turbo lag. This car also does come with a dual clutch automatic, which does prioritize efficiency. In low speed situations, it can get a little bit clunky and jerky, but I've experienced much worse in other cars. I've also had a chance to experience the all-wheel drive, which is a very unique offering. There's a 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine with 48-volt mild hybrid assistance. It's also mated to a 6-speed manual transmission, which is kind of rare now in 2025. That engine has what I would call a little bit more character than the 4-cylinder front-wheel drive version. It has a cool note, and it's surprisingly quiet as well once you get out on the open road. Although it is a mild hybrid, you can't really feel that it's doing anything at most speeds. If anything, it's just like an over-the-top engine idle stop-start system. It doesn't faze me too much because it is a manual and it could feel a little weird with the engine turning on and off all the time when you're trying to change gears as well. Uniquely for the all-wheel drive version, it has a range of terrain modes, including rock, sand, and there's also a lock mode. It was really cool to test that out because this car is surprisingly capable regardless of the road that you're driving on. In terms of the steering, it is on the lighter side for the entire Duster range. This does make the car easy to throw around and it's kind of fun to drive. It's a really big difference coming from a Suzuki Jimny per se, where the steering is completely vague and you don't know what you're doing. This feels direct and you're in control and it's fun. Now for the suspension. This is one of the car's proper sweet spots. It's just so comfortable, supple and quiet. There are some differences between the front wheel drive and the all-wheel drive version, especially at the rear. The front wheel drive has a torsion beam setup, whereas the four-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive I should say, has a multi-link setup. Ultimately, I couldn't really tell a difference between the two because they're both super comfortable. They soak up bumps like nothing, especially sharper bumps like what I'll do up here. On the parking front, this is a small SUV, so it does need to slot into tight spots in the car parks. Thankfully, you should be able to do this. I have noticed that it does have a small turning circle, which is great. However, the reversing camera and the surround view camera system on this Techno trim does have low camera quality. I have seen better in other cars, and it isn't the worst thing in the world given the price point this car is positioned at, but it is a con and I would like to see better. In terms of visibility, I think this car is fantastic. There is a small windscreen, which feels quite upright, but you have a clear view ahead. The bonnet in particular looks quite cool and muscular. And then when you do over the shoulder checks, the windows are nice and wide, and that's complemented by a really nice rear envelope as well. In terms of safety, this is another one of the Duster's strong points. The lane keep assist does sometimes get a little overbearing and kind of jerk at the wheel, especially if the roads are narrow and the lane markings are faded. However, there is a personalized button on the right-hand side of the dash that allows you to turn it off super easily. It does need to be done every time you drive the car because every single safety system defaults back to on, but it's a simple shortcut and I really like that. Lastly, I'll talk about NVH, which stands for noise, vibration, and harshness. This car is really quiet, regardless of the surface you're driving on. On road, it's super supple. But what blew me away the most is how quiet it is on dirt roads. You can be cruising along at 60 or 80 kilometers an hour, and it honestly feels like you're driving on a sealed road. Once you get out on the highway, there is a little bit more road noise and wind noise, but I've experienced much worse in cars at a similar price point. The Renault Duster hasn't been crash tested by ANCAP just yet, though in Europe the Dacia Duster did receive a 3-star Euro ANCAP rating in 2024. As standard, there are 6 airbags, autonomous emergency braking, lane departure warning, lane keep assist, driver attention alert, traffic sign recognition, rear parking sensors, and a reversing camera. Stepping up to the Techno gets you blind spot monitoring, front and side parking sensors, as well as a surround view camera. Noticeably absent from the entire lineup is rear cross traffic alert as well as adaptive cruise control. There's only standard cruise control in this car. For the full safety details, read my detailed written review at carsguide.com.au. On the ownership front, this car is covered by a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. This is getting a little short now as the industry standard moves to 7 years and beyond, especially on the budget end of the spectrum. Owners also get 5 years of roadside assistance. Logbook servicing is required every 12 months or 30,000 kilometers, which is mainstream for commercial vehicle buyers, but it's incredibly rare for just a regular car. It's very handy for those who travel long distances. The first 5 services have capped pricing. All up, these cost $2,475 for all-wheel drive Dusters or $2,685 for front-wheel drive Dusters. Alternatively, you can purchase a 5-year prepaid service plan for $2,100 for all-wheel drive Dusters or $2,150 for front-wheel drive Dusters. This is a saving of over $500 depending on the version you opt for. With cool looks as well as funky and unique powertrain options, it seems that Renault might be onto a winner here with the Duster. It'll be interesting to see if the Australian public falls in love with this car, but I know I have in this initial experience. Thank you for watching. For more and to read my detailed written review, head to carsguide.com.au.